WV Uncommon Place. This podcast is a variety podcast that houses numerous series to cover mental health, empowerment, podcast framework, and various intimate theories to get to know the hosts. Along with occasional movies reviews and dives in pop culture with our event podcast episodes. The Uncommon Place digs into bringing guests on that stories don't fit the mold and are very different. WV stands for the great state of West Virginia, and every quarter we cover something in West Virginia. Stacey and myself, JR, are your hosts, so please come along for this venture to Uncommon Place.
Hey everybody, this is JR. I'm back, West Virginia in Commonplace here. We're doing a special interview with my sister. This is part 2 of this interview. Now if you listen to the tail end of the last episode, we were talking about our father. Now one thing I do want to say about our father real fast, in not having him for a long time in life, it's shaped and molded us. We both can agree with that, and people will say that all day long. The hardest thing, though, that I will say for me, and I'll ask you about this, is that there were times that I needed him when I got older, and I reached out to other people, and for the West Virginians wretched, reached out to people, and people didn't, I knew they didn't give me the satisfactory answer that I would get from him. So I just stopped reaching out to people after about the age of 22, because I realized that people... You have to accept people for who they are. You can't always take them for that. So the one thing that I took from him, and this is something he did with us when we were kids, in the nighttime, not the morning, at night, I would lay on his back and go to sleep or whatever, but he would sit downstairs with us and play video games. I don't know if you remember this. When we had an NES, he played Super Mario, he played Duck Hunt, and you played a little bit here and there, but the thing that you and him played together was inside of Duck Hunt. Not the actual duck part, but it was where the clays would get shot off. Mm-hmm. You and him would play that together, and that was something that y'all did, and it's vivid in my mind because I do have one of the greatest photographic memories of all time, and you all enjoyed that. Not so much Super Mario or anything like that, because you played with me and all, but you just tolerated that. But y'all did that together, and that was something that y'all had. And, after that, I always remember when we were growing up, we partook in this thing called Nick at Night. It was Nickelodeon shows at night. Mm-hmm. Mr. Ed would come on, different things like that, older shows, and he would watch them with us, and that's where I heard the Wilbur. Even though we're Wilbert, we would hear these things. Bewitched came on, certain things that came on at nighttime, and even the hour before that, there would be like Doug and certain other cartoons that would come on that he would watch with us. I want to even say Rugrats at the very beginning, maybe not. Mm-hmm. Boy, I know it was Hey Dude and all that shit. Are You Afraid of the Dark? Yeah. So our dad did institute those things, and Rosalind was doing her thing or whatever, but I don't want the audience to think that my mom was a bad person, but here was the take on my weekend. When we did do something with her, one thing that she did do, which I don't know why it's not in her life now, we cleaned. She would throw on a record, and she'd have that old yellow-ass can of Pledge, and we dusted. Mm-hmm. We had a TV that had a wood grain around it, yep, and she would do that. So with her, she always wanted to instill being a friend, at least in my perspective, when we were younger. But when it came time for that adult, I didn't get that mother from her.
I didn't either. I got her as not even trying to be the cool mom. She was just like, y'all kids do whatever you want to, as long as you're not setting the house on fire, cutting off somebody's arm or leg. That's basically how it was. But to some degree, that helped me learn how to be laid back because, again, as a young child, because of my intellect and I did really well in school, people, and mainly family members, I would always hear them say, Val's so smart, this and that, this and that. So in my mind, it was embedded that I had to be smart. I couldn't be dumb. I couldn't be a failure. I couldn't have certain things, just drop the ball on them and move on. I had to be this and I had to be that. And so after my father's death, that stuck even more. My father never wanted anything more than for me to be me. That's the only time in life apart from this point now as an adult that I can say that I was truly free to be who I wanted to be. When I got older and I was with friends and stuff, I had to kind of mesh and fit in with them, which when I got back with my family, I felt awkward because I was so used to being around a certain set of people. When I got around my family, I felt out of place. I felt like I didn't belong because I wasn't with them all the time. And a lot of that too was by choice. It wasn't because I didn't want to be. So when I did go on a few family trips or we would go visit family, I was awkward. I was that wallflower. I would sit off by myself, or I would pick one or two people that were similar to me and just have conversations. And I never had really deep conversations or connections with children my age. It was always with people older. Like, for some reason, I did grow up. In my mind, I think that was a coping mechanism too, along with people pushing me to mature quicker because I was the oldest. That was my way of coping with dad's not coming back. Also, with my mother, I had to do a lot of things that children should never have to worry about. Learning how to pay bills. My mother eventually got a person that could help her manage her money to some degree, but she became so unruly that they didn't want to be liable for anything that she did because she wasn't responsible for keeping receipts and stuff. So a lot of people that would have helped her drew back from helping her. And so here I was again back with making sure that she wrote out checks for certain bills and having those things sent out in the mail. So again, a child shouldn't be doing stuff like that. A child should be out with their friends or, enjoying a movie and stuff. I did go to movies, but not very many. My brother had that luxury. Skateland, I think I went a handful of times, and I didn't even skate the entire time. I might have went and played laser tag or something, and I didn't even enjoy it. It's like that being an adult and that part of my life was so into me, I didn't know how to be a young child or a young teen.
Right. And I feel bad that you missed out on that. And I no Barb or nothing, but the reason that I give you all this aspect and people that are friends and stuff like that know us, this is part of the story you don't know. And this is why, even at this age, it's 20, 30 years plus since that time, I like to get that part out because then it leads into everything else because it gives you certain aspects. So the thing that bothered me as we were getting through that middle time, and I know you were handling those bills and taking care of that stuff, we have outside influences. And I'm never derogatory and I will never disrespect anybody by saying anything, but we had adults that came around to be users. They used our mother, they had preconceived notions, and they did things to them in which those people, karma was something that I didn't learn about then, but I see it now.
Right.
And I see how those things are. So the people that had goodwill and intent are still around, and the people that didn't, that's one thing I will say, I noticed that they got flushed out in the later part of life. Have you noticed that now since
right. And when we get to a part in this interview where I talk about a very big pivotal point that broke me, changed me in my life, those very same people that were always there, they were there in many aspects. They weren't there solid, but they would come in at times where they were truly needed. During this particular period of my life. But staying where we are right now, I will say for me, if I could name 5 people from the time that I was in middle school up through my graduation that influenced me in a positive way, believe it or not, it would have to be, and she's now deceased, Miss Shelby Martin.
Okay, yeah.
Also, Agatha Sparrow, my aunt.
Yeah.
At the time, my mom's friend Judy, but there are muddy waters with that situation now because she's not in my life now. I give her all the love because she did genuinely love me and you.
And shout out G Keith.
Yes.
G Keith.
And then I would have to say too, my Aunt Ruby Grooms was a very positive influence and taught me a lot about finances.
And she taught me about Florida.
Yes, and actually one of my fondest childhood memories with my brother and my then cousin Scooter was when she took us all to Florida.
Yeah, we wilded out.
And we had a whole week down there, and we pretty much had a really good time. Like, that's one of the points I can say.
Can I say something about that real quick?
Yeah.
So shout out to my Aunt Ruby on this this right here. How's she gonna give young ass kids their own room? We had our own hotel rooms at like, I don't even remember how, we were nine.
Yeah. I think I was 10,
yeah.
10 or 11.
But we had our own rooms, and I'm going to tell the audience I did do something wrong. Me and my cousin got on the Skin Flick channel, and we watched a few flicks, and we got in trouble about, I mean, we had to pay for it, but it was hilarious, and I will never forget, and this is how good my memory is. We're in Disney MGM Studios, so everybody knows that I'm a fan of Michael Jackson. I don't care about what he's done. We went and did Captain EO. Captain EO was like this fake Star Wars thing, and it had all the little stuff, but this was the thing that got me. We're going to talk about this real quick, audience. Twilight Zone. Tower of Terror. Our uncle is 6'6".
Very tall.
And he ain't got no fear. He ain't got no soul when it came to this. He sat in the spot with the seat belt. And you know we were going on that thing, and it was doing the little Twilight thing and all that 3D graphic type stuff or hologram type stuff. And then when that motherfucker dropped, they still got the picture to this day. We'll have to go get a copy of it. That was the most terrifying moment in my life. I don't know about you, but, and I mean, we've been on roller coasters, Busch
Gardens. I
Gardens.
actually passed out. Like my head slumped over to the side. I remember that picture. That
little quick drop. and it wasn't nothing else exciting about that ride, just that one quick drop. You probably waited an hour to go on the damn ride.
Uh-huh.
But it was like, that is a memory that's always embedded. So when I go to theme parks, I'm like, yo, I'm not getting on nothing that's got a rail system and that just drops down or stays inside a building. I better be on a real roller coaster. So shout out to Ruby and Uncle Pokey for that. Now, going along, getting into the meat of this, because this is where the second part comes in, there were certain miscues. And this relates to our father's dead. We have family members taking care of us, but we were shuffled around. At some point during Rosalind, one thing I'll say about my mom's mental health issues stretched across 3.5 years. That 4 years of grief that we had, or I had. I don't know how long your grief, we don't have to put a timetable on it, but those 4 years, our grandmother was technically our sole caretaker, and she did right by us. She stepped in and came to our house for a little bit. Then we went to her house, and with her and our Uncle Earl and them, they took care of us.
Yeah,
they made sure we were solid. She'd already been a parent, and everything there, they were solid. But on the weekends, we got shifted around. I ended up staying with B at the very beginning. You went and stayed with Judy or Marion?
I believe it was Marion at first.
Right. So then after that, you and I were back together one more time.
Oh, and that's another shout out to Marion Haynes. You also were very instrumental in a lot of positive things that I now have as an adult, and I thank you for that too.
And then at one point, it was me, you, and Keith at Judy's for a slight bit of time. So that was, and she would go take us to putt-putt. We would do bingo.
Yes, Judy did a lot with us too. So
the aspect that I'm trying to get to people is that there were people that cared in these aspects, here. But the underlying thing that bothered me when I got older, I didn't realize how much money, nothing on anybody, but this is hard, honest truth. Our mom funded everything, or the money that our dad left funded everything. And that's not a jab at anybody, because who would have enough money to take care of like 3 kids, whatever. So shout out on that. But I realized that, a lot of times in certain things that we did, they made sure everything worked out. But at some point, we were still financing part of it. So I see the helping hand, but then I see that other side. And that's what we're about to get into in a second. Yeah. So when I stayed with B, shout out to Alice Collmore, Carrie Fox, Cheryl Fox, and all of the Fox family, Douglas family. Shout out to you all. Those people were very instrumental with me and structure. Because Cheryl with Carrie had structure.
Yes, she did.
B had structure. B, how we're sitting right now, B and I would eat dinner like this.
Yes.
And at that time, she didn't have her boyfriend or nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, she was married to Chad. She was married to Chad at the time.
Yeah.
So when I would sit at the table with her, even if I'm eating some spaghetti or something, I had to talk to her and be formidable and let her know about my day. So she taught me the structure of how to treat a lady. And from that, shout out, and God rest her soul, because she did pass away.
That's why, she did.
Great lady.
Yeah, she was.
Great lady. So after that, rolling around with Darlene and stuff, but on the weekends, we were separated.
Yeah, we were.
Because at a time, when I was a young boy, I was playing sports, and it was odd, I'd stay with Judy sometime, but I was always in Amherst County.
Yes.
I was Amherst County, Coolwell, Madison Heights. Those were my areas. But you were left to Concord and Restburg.
Yep, Judy and Marion for the most part. And then sometimes with grandmother Darlene. Another person that I forgot, and she was very instrumental for me, was Priscilla. Priscilla
Jefferson.
Yes,
Monique.
Priscilla used to do my hair for me, and she would let me stay on the weekend with her. Like, I would get my hair done that Friday and stay the whole weekend with her daughter Monique and her younger sister, and we would play and have a good time too. And then she would connect and bring me back to my aunts or either another relative so that I could go to school. One thing I will also say about my grandmother is she always made sure that we were at school. Every day we would go back to Lynchburg. She would drive us back in the morning for school and be there every evening for a while until we started staying with other relatives to make sure we got to school. And I know that irritated her so bad because she just wanted us to transfer it and go to either Heritage, EC Glass. But she pushed through that. And also I will say she was also very pivotal in another point of my life. And very sad that she's gone, but grateful that, she's not suffering anymore.
Right. And the thing I will say about Darlene, and this is something I want to put in this episode, even though this is about you.
Yeah.
Darlene, me and her and my Uncle Earl, I never knew until I started talking to him a few weeks ago about this. All three of us we're a three-headed dragon. in good ways and in bad ways. So shout out to Earl and shout out to my grandma Darlene.
Yeah.
And the savviness of my street life. Because our grandma ran the streets.
Yeah.
She was part of the streets and everything. Uncle Earl too, shout out to them.
Yeah.
The aspect and the pizzazz and the charisma for that type of stuff. I always had wished that it had translated to you somewhere.
Yeah.
I mean, you're a good person, but what I'm saying is that's something I got from them. So shout out to them on that one, and shout out to the cameos, the William Pinnells, the William Sparrows.
Yeah.
Shout out to all of y'all because you all made cameos in our lives, and I'm not going to disrespect y'all or take anything away from y'all, but you all had families and you had lives. So when we seen you, we saw you, and when we interacted.
Right.
And anybody else I forgot, I'm sorry, but it's so many people that I could name for cameos.
Right.
But on the flip side of that, the cameos bothered me. Did the cameos of people just popping up here and there?
The one cameo I will say that affected me later on in life and was very pivotal to me, and even now into my adult life, is the William Pinnell. He became more instructional in my younger adult life. And when we get to that point, I'll explain his great influence and his encouragement, and the things that he did, the selfless things that he did for me and for my mom, actually. And there are two other relatives, two other uncles, William Sparrow and Leroy Sparrow, that were very pivotal. The cameos for me was, again, because I was already self-alienated by choice in many degrees to my family. When I saw them, I was grateful to see them. And some of them had a nice aura and a nice feel to them. And when they were gone, it was a little saddening, but I got over it and moved on. There were only the relatives that grew up with us, like Ruby's children, Henry and later on Katrina. They were the only cousins immediately that we had direct access to. All of our other cousins lived a couple hours away and even out of state. So it was kind of like you don't miss what you don't have. It wasn't that I never missed them. It's just they weren't really always there. So when it came, it was great to have them, but I wasn't devastated when they were gone either.
Right. And shout out to my Aunt Agatha, because in the summer.
Yeah, she was awesome.
I was a handful. So I went up to stay with her for quite a few summers. So that's where I got my Maryland swag or my Merlin swag. And I got my Nova aspects to me. And I learned about that way of life. And with her, and I will say this, and this goes from childhood up, it didn't matter the distance she lived. She always made an effort to be involved where she could with us.
Yes, she did.
And later on in life, learning how certain things and certain entities, and even the person that I became structurally behind the scenes that you know about now,
right.
Learning about some of the traumas that went on inside our family while we were all having fun and doing things. It didn't hurt me or hinder me, or it didn't do anything to me then, but knowing that people had to put up with certain people that they didn't want to deal with us, it made me love and appreciate that person a whole lot better. And that's no jab on anybody, but sibling rivalries and money. Money was the root of the whole issue with everybody involved with us at some point, because some people stood for us and some people stood for the money. And that's the next topic that we're about to get into, if you don't mind.
Oh, no, I don't at all.
And that was something as a kid. Why did I, at age 10 or 11, have to make sure that certain people I was dealing with were doing the right thing by my mother?
Yeah, with me on that aspect, and many people who will remain nameless, but I will say this. There was genuine people that tried to help our mother with her finances and even with helping us grieve and move on with our lives past our father's passing. But there were other people that saw us and they said, oh, well, if Valen and Jared come stay with us, Rosalind's going to give us extra money to take care of them. And they felt that they could pinch and pull where they wanted to. And that was wrong. That was very wrong. And then there were many people that would ask our mother for money to borrow it, and they never paid it back. Or if they did, they took forever and a moon to pay it back when they know they could. This woman is a widow, and she had 2 small children, and people were taking a great deal of advantage of her. And it wasn't just family. It was a lot of friends around her.
Right.
And she didn't realize those people loved her money, not her. But my brother and I, we could see through that. And I was one of those, I was very quiet, but if something really bothered me, I would speak up. And I said things. I would be like, Mom, such and such, I don't think they really need that money because they're not going to pay it back, Mom. They've done this to you 1,000 times before, but because my mom was who she was and the medicine had her in the state that she was in at that time, she was just giving money away like it was candy to people.
So that built my first boundary and defensive mechanism, and I don't know if it did it to you, but it told me to, and this was my problem. I didn't care about a person's actions. I cared about their words, because what they said is what I carried them on. I never carried them on an action, and I know that's role reversal, which is weird. But whatever you're saying and the actions don't match up, I go back to your words. Because your actions, who gives a damn about that? Your word is all that you can carry with me, because your actions, you can be pseudo. And pseudo is a word I use a lot. Pseudo is something, you can just pull that little razzle-dazzle on me. So in doing this part, I'm going to go ahead, because we've been doing these kind of like 20-minute intervals. I'm going to cut this one here, because next we're about to go into darkness. And darkness for us and for everybody else that's listening, I'll put this disclaimer at the very beginning of the next episode. You have to understand that we were children that grew up and had to become adults early. We had to be responsible. Money was thrown at us. And it was in certain areas, and then money was taken from us. So we had to learn some responsibility. So let's get ready for part 3.
Please follow WV Uncommonplace on Instagram, Tumblr, Twitter, TikTok, where we have some great content, Facebook, LinkedIn. Hit up the merch store at onecommonplace.square.site. Join the email list from the website, and rate, subscribe, and give feedback from your favorite podcatcher. And lastly, thanks for listening, and tune into the next episode.